This video is part 2 of my novelette, When Strangers Feed You. If you missed part 1, please be sure to check out that video first. You can find it in the When Strangers Feed You narrated novelette playlist here on my YouTube channel. Thanks. I hope you enjoy part 2. Part 2. 5 days had passed since Colina's bold escape. The humans had been up and down the neighborhood, hanging strange flat squares here and there that bore Colina's image. I hid in the shadows of the box machines, watching them with curiosity. Never before had I seen a cat's likeness flattened and reproduced in such a way. When I slunk out that night, I found them hung on the surfaces of houses all through the domain, as if there were dozens of her, all staring down at me, their yellow eyes reflecting the night eye's light. It was unnatural. I should have known then, with her gaze on me everywhere I turned, that her fate and mine were indivisible. I should have heeded my instincts and run until her eyes could no longer reach me. I did not. I shrugged off the gaze of her many images and continued as if nothing could touch me. I was a fool. It was the night of the 5th day from her escape, and I was prowling my domain under the shadows of those strange, thin, glowing trees that light the sidewalks at nightfall. It was not uncommon for a few stray humans to be about in the darkness, those whose box machines had brought them home after the day I had fallen, or whose panting dog companions needed help moving through the area so that they could eliminate their bodily waste. It puzzles me that dogs should need human assistance to complete their body's natural functions, but it seems that is the case. I will never understand it. Nevertheless, it was one such night, and a pair of humans, a male and a female, were moving toward me down the sidewalk with their dog companion tied to a long rope. I slid into the shadow of a hedge to watch them pass, and I believed myself to have evaded their notice. I relaxed within the shadows and began to nod off, thinking myself safe. Once again, I was wrong. Moments ticked by. The night eye shifted a fraction in the sky. I dozed. Suddenly there was a rush of footsteps and human voices and the panting of a dog. "We saw it down that way," a human male spoke. "Was it all black?" asked a female. I sprang upright. There were 2 more humans, a large female and a tiny female, a human girl child, headed my direction. I recognized the larger female. She had been at the dwelling where Colina escaped. "Yes," said the male, "down there by the last house." He pointed in my direction. I tensed, poised to run, but there was nowhere to go. There was no safe path of escape that would not expose me to their view. My mind raced. Surely they weren't after me. What harm had I done them? The large female and the girl child moved in my direction. "Colina!" the large one cried out. "Colina!" Then I realized. All black. Down there. The dwelling, the escape, those eerie flattened images of Colina staring, always staring. Suddenly it made sense. I, too, was clothed in black fur. I, too, had large yellow eyes. I was small of build, like her. I had a faint white patch on my chest, like her. I was loose on the streets, like her. They thought I was Colina. Panic surged through me. They would capture me, punish me for Colina's actions, imprison me or torture me or whatever fate Colina deserved. I would receive it in her place. I spun within the brush, scanning for a way of escape, any way out unnoticed. But the thin tree lights had flooded away most of the shadows, and the nearest box machines were too far to reach unseen. "Colina!" the voice called, approaching. I ran. At first I bolted across the street, heedless of them spotting me. I could think only to get away, farther and farther away. But they saw me, of course, and then they gave chase. The large one was fast but clumsy. She tracked me to the corner, but I slipped into the brush before she could reach me. She had me cornered, but she only stood beside my hiding place, not reaching in. The little one stumbled along, trying to catch up. The large one waited. "I think she's in here somewhere," she said. She crouched down to peer into the bushes, and the little one did the same. One breath in. The large one's eyes scanned the branches. One breath out. I coiled my body inward, readying to flee. One breath in. The little one shifted, her arm brushing just inches from my body. One breath out. I slid myself to the ground, preparing to dart beneath. One breath in. The large one's hand reached forward and parted the branches. One breath out, I glanced up and saw her eyes staring directly into my own. One breath in, I tensed every muscle and waited for the moment to run. One breath out, and in, and out again. The large female slipped her hand away, letting the branches fall back into place, and stood. Baffled, I held my place, not daring to move an inch. Why has she backed away? Was this some kind of trap? Then I remembered. Human vision was best in the day eye. Could it be she hadn't seen me? I think she's in there, the voice said suddenly, and a shriller voice answered, Can I grab her? No, we need to, the voice began to answer, but I heard no further. I was already running. My pad struck pavement, again and again and again. Houses blurred past me, thin tree lights and darkness blurring. My breath hitched in my chest as my body coiled, uncoiled, coiled again, performing to perfection the bursts of speed gifted me as a predator, that crazed dash that closes in on the kill. But this time, I wasn't closing in on prey. I was the one being hunted. I burst out of the bush and into the dazzling light of the thin trees. My eyes locked on a patchwork of shadows beyond the nearest house. It was a row of box machines, lined up one beside the other. If I could only reach them, I could use the human shadow vision weakness against them. I could move in cover of darkness and let my midnight fur become as one with the shadows, as it was meant to do. But first, I had to survive the run through tree light. I had to make it there before the human females reached me. I forced my pads to strike faster, my spine to coil more sharply, my tail tucked downward and my eyes fixed on the shadows that would be my salvation, and I ran. The human females gave chase. Their footsteps echoed, slamming down hard on the pavement behind me. Stay close to me, we're in the road, the larger one called. The little one's steps quickened, coming nearer. I ran. The shadows were a span away, half a span, a quarter span, and still the steps came faster, nearer, and then I was within reach, and I dove. I hurled my body beneath the nearest box machine and immediately spun, tucking myself into the darkness behind one of its large circles. I panted, my breath coming in heaves. The steps clattered to a stop beside the box machine, and the large female knelt down. She stared into the shadows, but from the blankness of her eyes I could tell she couldn't see me. I breathed a sigh of relief, but too soon. Suddenly her hand swiped in on me, groping blindly for me in the darkness. I pressed myself against the circle shelter, inching slowly backward out of her reach. But for how much longer could I remain hidden? A few more inches and she would have me. Did you find her? A male voice called. More footsteps. The female stood. Yeah, she said, but she ran underneath here. I think she's still there, but I can't see for sure. We'll help you, a different voice answered. The other female, the one who had been with the male when they were walking their dog companion. Thanks, answered the first female. They had me surrounded. A shuffle, a click. Suddenly, blinding light blazed through the undercarriage of the box machine. I slammed my eyes shut against the searing pain, but not before catching a glimpse of the source. The first female was holding a small box in her hand that shone with a light even brighter than the day eye. And how was this even possible? I do not know. It was channeled into some kind of beam that she aimed beneath the box machine, wiping away the shadows that had shrouded me. What sorcery was this? I cannot say, but I knew to stay would be the end for me. I did not even think. I ran. I had no plan. I darted from box machine to shrubs and back again, as fast as my legs would carry me, while madly the humans pursued me. Every time they cornered me, I managed to slip away, just barely, using my advantage in speed. But how long could I keep this up until my luck ran out? I was outnumbered, and always their dark magic device swept over me, removing the safety of my shadows. The humans were growing impatient, and one tore open a small pouch of some food and shook it near me, trying to lure me out. Its aroma flooded my senses, and my cramping stomach growled in anguish, but I swallowed back my hunger and spun, and ran. For what seemed like an eternity this continued, until I was to the point of exhaustion and thought I could surely keep it up no longer. And then, suddenly, the humans fell back. I had just darted behind a row of houses, and the female walked toward me, glanced around, and then turned away. She's too fast, and I'm not sure which way she went this time, she said. She turned to the small female. We'll have to try again another time. The little one's face fell into a frown. The large female turned toward the others. "Thanks for your help," she said. "Let me know if you see her again." There were murmurs of assent, more talking, but I heard little. My brain was throbbing with both exhaustion and relief. From a distance, I heard the high-pitched voice of the girl child call out, now just barely audible. "But what about Colina? We can't leave her out here." I couldn't get close enough to see for sure if it was her, the larger female answered. "But if it was, she'll be okay out here for one night. Besides, we couldn't catch her, and now we've scared her so much she'll never come out. We'll just have to try again tomorrow." The footsteps moved farther away. The voices faded. I collapsed to the ground, letting my body dissolve into the blackness of the shadows. I had escaped. I had made it. I was still alive and free. But tomorrow. I shivered. They were planning to come back tomorrow. I rose to my paws, then glanced around and said a silent goodbye to my beloved territory. This had been my favorite area to hunt in under the night eye. In this part of the zone, I could prowl alone, unbothered by the riffraff that gathered in the other nearby territories, and nap in peace beneath the rows of box machines without interruption. This small part of the zone had been my territory by right, hard won long ago. There were 2 territories in this domain. This one I owned, and one other, and this one had been my home, if such a large and open area can be given such a title. In any case, it was familiar, and it was mine. But it was no longer safe for me. Tomorrow, I would have to present myself to the Tom in charge of the back area, and beg leave to hunt on his grounds. I would have to relinquish my free roam in favor of the safety of his territory, and offer my service in exchange for his protection. The thought disgusted me, for I knew the Tom would not be gracious. He would make me grovel, force me to bring him hunting gifts, exact every last bit of favor he could from my weakness and need. But what other choice did I have? My only other option would be to leave this whole domain entirely and fight my way for a spot amid the territories outside this zone, and that would be akin to suicide. The gangs outside our domain's walls were vicious, violent, hardened by time on streets not bordered by human houses, exposed to the elements without even a box machine to shelter beneath. Some say such a life drove them back to the most grotesque elements of predation. Cats utterly without civilization who would gladly tear apart a fellow feline rather than offer him one spare morsel of food. And even if I survived the cats, there were others. Wild dogs, raccoons, toothed scale beasts, and very little food. It would be madness to go out there. But even that would be better than being captured by the humans. However, I wasn't yet at that point of desperation. I still had the option of safety through servitude, if only I could swallow my pride enough to ask to be accepted beneath the ruling Tom's oversight. I growled with displeasure. I didn't like it, but truly it was the better option. I would beg the arrogant Tom, and if that didn't work, I would leave the whole domain if necessary. What choice did I really have? So long as the humans thought I was Colina, I would never be safe. So long as Colina remained free, I would be in exile from my territory, on the run in her stead. Yes, I decided. Tomorrow I would walk to the Tom and negotiate a relocation to his section. I should have just thrown myself on the mercy of the rogue beasts outside our walls. Perhaps then I could have avoided what was to come. This has been part 2 of When Strangers Feed You. There are 2 more parts coming in this novelette, so be sure to subscribe here to this channel so you can get a notification whenever I post new videos. The final 2 parts should be going up over the next couple of weeks. You can also read this story and over a dozen other stories in my subscriber freebie collection, available to those who sign up for my newsletter. Just go to ccrawfordwriting.com/subscribe. You can also get exclusive stories, early access chapters to my books in progress, sneak peeks, and more on my Patreon, patreon.com/ccrawfordwriting. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in a future video.